Hello, everyone, and welcome to Demos for Democracy, ongoing series of live interactive online demos featuring designers and builders of the latest innovative governance platforms, tools, and methods to foster greater openness and collaboration. We are very happy today because we have Alex and John, who are going to talk about Access to Justice Author. And please, let's start. Let's start with what's Access to Justice, a brief intro, and then also like when did you decide to build this tool and why?
Okay. Yes, I can talk a little bit about A2J Author. So A2J Author is in its latest version, it's a cloud-based authoring platform. It's also a graphical interface that walks self-represented litigants through a particular legal process. Before we talk about sort of the specific context in which A2J was conceived, I want to note that A2J Author operates in the justice gap, and so what it seeks to do is to provide ways to self-represented individuals to have their is to basically get their foot in the door for a particular legal process, and so. The justice gap is well documented. The numbers are staggering. Yeah. Some of the statistics that we hear often are that less than 20% of the civil legal needs of self-represented individuals are unmet each year. For every one person that's accepted by a legal aid organization, one person is turned away. And so there's this huge void that needs to be filled, and we believe strongly that A2J Author is a powerful tool that can help meet those needs. And so, as I mentioned, it's an authoring platform, so you have it's simple enough that non-technical individuals without a computer programming background can use it. But it's powerful enough that it can do many different things. And so I suppose I'll kick it over to John to talk maybe about some of the beginning stages of A2J Author and how it came about.
Can we know, since now, what can the tool do? Like, if you can say what products does it deliver? What can we do with it?
Sure. With A2J Author, what it is the front end sort of question interface. So what happens is that you have a self-represented litigant who encounters a court form, for example, and they just don't know where to start, or in some cases they don't even know which form to fill out. So what A2J Author allows them to do is to encounter an interview graphically, to see a guide avatar that asks them questions about their particular legal issue. From there, the end user is how we call them. The end user will then input some data in, which is basically the answers to the questions. And once they've gone through the guided interview will then, it can, among other things, it can generate a document for them. So some of the things that they can do, you can automate forms, you can assemble documents. We've seen A2J Author used for online intake for legal aid organizations. It can be used to triage issues to a particular resource, standalone info guide. So there's a wealth of things that A2J Author can do. But I think it's mostly known for its document assembly and form automation capabilities.
And John, you were, since the beginnings of A2J, you are the designer and the creator of this tool?
Co-creator, I'll cop to that. So forms are the way that the government and the courts want to talk to us. They're a structured communication, and if we get it wrong, then they get mad at us. They send us away and say, "You're stupid. You did this wrong. We won't agree to whatever it is you're petitioning us for. Whether it's give us our tax money back, or let me stay in my apartment a couple more weeks before you evict me, or let me expunge my criminal record." All sorts of things that government and the courts wants to do that we can do. The API of the courts are forms. And A2J makes that API explicable or possible for mere mortals to figure out and fill out and complete. And so that was the original impetus. It actually goes back a long way. And I'm going to make a really long story short by saying in 2000, the Institute of Design at IIT, at Illinois Institute of Technology, got a grant to do a project with the law school. Now, you got to understand how weird that is. Institute of Design and law schools have almost never, matter of fact, we found no evidence that those two entities anywhere have ever worked together. And the goal was to go around and look at how self-represented litigants dealt with the courts, and then to come up with a whole bunch of ideas about how to make that better. Design ideas. This is way before the whole, Apple design sort of coolness that's going on right now. They published a book, and it's free, and there's a PDF, but it's a really long URL, so I'll put it in the show notes, or I'll send it to you later for that. And out of that, and I participated in that. I went to all the meetings and things like that. But out of that, we gathered several of those ideas and said, why don't we build a piece of software that lets a lawyer, without a programmer, automate a legal form or a court process. And that's what A2J Author started out as and has become. So it's been done over, so the lawyers that do this now are legal aid attorneys. The forms that they automate are the ones, they get a lot of people coming in that they don't have time to see. More than 50% of the people that are eligible for legal aid can't get help because there aren't enough legal aid attorneys. And so they look at their list of people they're turning away and then sort it by who's the ones that we can do the most for if we're not there to actually help them. In other words, processes or problems that can be dealt that the person can do themselves. And they said, okay, we'll automate those processes. And so over 800 forms have been automated in 30 different states, and they've been used over 2.5 million times in the last 5 or 6 years. So I like to say that if you know anything about LegalZoom claims to have about 2 million customers, and they're valued at $200 billion. So we're about the same size as LegalZoom, except I'm not swimming in $200 million right now. You'd probably have better audio, and I'd be wearing a nicer shirt or something, right? So that's basically the story of A2J. It's a design product that is specifically aimed at helping poor people with English as a second language, people who may not have finished high school, deal with complicated court forms in a way that they can actually succeed in filling them out.
And what has been the biggest challenge? They use the end users, the ones that use this interview and the document assembly, or actually the lawyers that need to learn how to create this interview. And so what's the biggest challenge, with the users or with the lawyers or the legal aid aspect?
I think it's wow. I wouldn't pick either of those. So because we found that we can take almost any reasonably technological savvy lawyer and in a couple of hours train them and they get it. If anything, they then try to do something way more complicated than the tool was designed for. We designed the tool just for low-hanging fruit because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of simple processes that need to be automated or can be pulled off the plate of legal aid attorneys and courts so that the whole system is more efficient. But people have tried to automate joint custody divorces, online intake, which involves asking a lot of questions about how much money the person makes. And that's complicated because it's not just how much money do you make. It's do you have any in the bank? Do you have any stocks? Do you have these other things? You have to get these questions right in order to qualify for legal aid in certain situations. So so training the lawyers has not been the problem. They're pretty savvy. The users, so you have to understand, the users you'd think would have trouble with this, but compared to what? Compared to being handed a complicated form, this is heaven. And compared to like nothing, no representation whatsoever, this is better than nothing. And so it's the classic don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's not the best situation. The best situation is a real lawyer helping you with your legal problem. But if you can't get that, here's something that will help you maybe navigate the system yourself.
Great. And as for now, how has been the evolution of adding features? Do you have it open source? Do you need help that you want to ask to the programmers community? Or how's the development of the tool? What stage it is?
So it turns out that's a touchy question, and I'll answer it by saying I wish it was open source, but it's a very successful project, so it has a lot of owners. Okay. Not only my organization, Cali, but also the university and some of the grantees, and as a result, they're a little scared of just giving it away open source wise, because they're afraid that would diminish its value or actually reduce its reach, or it would be used for nefarious purposes or something. And I actually understand that thinking, but so right now it's not an open source product, but it is freely available for anybody who's working in legal aid, any nonprofit, any court, and in most cases any law school in the world. After that, contact us and we'll see what we can do for you. We're pretty open to joint projects. To anticipate your next question, how could I, if I'm a lawyer, how could I buy this to use this for my practice? The answer is you can't yet. And we've been approached, and we're thinking maybe we should expand in that area. So we're working on that business model right now. But we're busy enough right now. We're a pretty, Cali and the Center for Access to Justice and Technology are actually very small nonprofits. There's only maybe 2 or 3 FTEs total devoted to this project. And we're getting an awful lot done for a very little amount of money and little bit of staffing. And so the idea of expanding into a full-blown business means we have to go and raise some money and figure out how we're going to essentially become a startup at that point.
Okay. But just to get it right, I am, for example, right now, I am a lawyer. I am in Mexico, and I would like to create my interview and my document. I can do it. That I can do. Yes.
If you want to do this yourself for your own practice, is that the question?
Well, I'm a human rights lawyer, and I think I can create some documents that could help the people advance particular situations. So can I just log into the author and create the interview and create the document?
So maybe. If you're working with an existing nonprofit or legal aid organization, yes, and we'll figure something out for you. If you're just doing it to generate practice for your own, clients for your own practice, then the answer is no right now. We're strictly sticking with our nonprofit mission at the present time.
Okay, cool. And so what's the process if someone wants to do this, to help out and to fulfill your mission, and they can just contact you and start the conversation? Is that the process?
Yeah, there's a website. There's a website, A2J or I think we actually have A2J.org. So they could go there, and there's videos. When we do training sessions with legal aid attorneys, we video them and put them up so people can self-learn how it works. If they want to do a project with us, they can contact us and we'll discuss. Okay. And that brings up an interesting one of the biggest things that's preventing us from growing is that there aren't enough legal aid attorneys to automate the thousands of forms that are potentially automatable in this case. And so we started a project last year called the A2J Author course project, where law schools use the tool to teach their students how to use it, and then we pair them up with legal aid organizations that have a process or a form that needs to be automated. So it results in like a big triple win. The student learns a 21st century practice skill, because I believe that in the future, this is the way a lot of law practice is going to go, not just for poor people and not just for the legal Zoom type of things. Second, the school gets to deliver a 21st century learning experience, legal aid gets help, and of course, the poor people get more forms automated. Our goal is for that to become an explosion of law students, thousands of them every year working with hundreds of legal aid organizations, automating tens of thousands of forms. And so we're starting to ramp that up. We're in our second version of that with 7 schools that start next January. And I can see that becoming, its own entity, that's too big to handle all by itself, without us even having to go commercial in order to sustain our efforts.
Right. And actually, if I could just piggyback off that a little bit, we here at Chicago Kent, we teach a course called the Justice and Technology Practicum. It's led by Professor Ron Stout. And what we do here is that we partner our students up with a legal aid organization. So we send out an RFP to the legal aid organizations on our listservs, and we just ask them, do you have any forms that you want automated? Do you have any projects that our students can do in a semester that they can reasonably accomplish in a semester? And once they get back to us with their interests, we can pair them up with some of our students. John was talking about how several of these different actors can actually win through this process, and I just want to affirm that because our students get to research a particular interest of law that they're interested in. At the same time, they're able to assist a legal aid organization that may be understaffed or doesn't have the capabilities to put out these A2Js. And also, the students are learning a new technological competency that will be helpful for them as they enter into the job market. So we love this model. As John mentioned, we are putting together, we've already gone through, this is going to be our second round of the A2J Author course project. And we would love to see this course model. It doesn't have to be the same exact one. It could be, and the beauty of A2J Author is that it can be adapted to any particular course model, whether it's a legal writing course or we've seen it used in a professionalism course. Of course, we've seen them in clinical courses where the students are really hands-on with the tool. But it's such an adaptable tool that you can use it in a lot of different course models. And so we would love to see that really flourish and get law students early starting to use this tool so that, once they enter the job market, they know how to use a tool that can be very, very effective and helpful to self-represented litigants.
So, for example, that's the interview that some lawyer created. Right now, what you're showing us in the screen.
Yeah, it must be painful to hear about software and not actually be able to see it. So up on the screen, I don't know what is this going out to everybody?
Yes.
Can everybody see this?
I can see that, John. Yes.
Oh, good. So this is what A2J Author from the user viewpoint looks like. Now it's a little hard to describe, except for the fact that so if you're already familiar with the web, and if you're you're tech savvy, then what's the big deal? Anybody can put forms up on the screen, and we all know how to fill them out because we buy things at Amazon and we type things into Facebook and stuff like that. Well, we got to recall that at the time we did this, which was around 2001 or 2, that wasn't so prevalent, and we're dealing with a particular audience of people who are high stressed. They're stressed out because they have a big legal problem. The English is a second language. They may not be tech savvy. Their kids might be, and they may not have finished high school for that matter. So they have everything going against them, and what we found with the design of A2J Author, when we worked with a design firm, was that we had to break the forms down into very small bits. So we literally ask only one question at a time. I'm going to pick any date here and just sort of tap through while I'm talking. We literally ask only one question at a time. We slow, and this is the weird paradox we found. We slow down the process of filling out the form, and it results in speeding up the process of accurately filling out a form. If you throw a wall of text at people, it not only intimidates them, they make mistakes. If you throw a wall of text at them but only do it one little question at a time, it turns out they can focus. You notice there's not a lot of crap on the screen. There's an awful lot of white space. The progress bar is essentially you getting closer to that courthouse in the distance.
Do you have
all those little things that make this slightly easier for a person to actually finish what may be 100 questions, but they go by really fast.
Are
Do you have any questions?
Yes. Are there any features related, for example, what if someone cannot read, and can you click on a sound button and someone speaks the question and then someone can help them answer that? Or
So I'll be honest with you. There is the ability. There are features in A2J that the authors can attach an MP3 to every screen, and so it will read what's on the screen as they go through. In reality, however, that's really hard to do for long interviews, and not many of our authors have done that. And so one of the things that I've been researching is basically some sort of text-to-speech capability that's different than a screen reader, but but still does a sort of a verbal version of this. We train our authors such that we don't want them to put a lot of text on the screen. And if they have to put a lot of text on the screen, we want them to break it up into, small bubbles of information. So there might be places where, let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. There might be places where there's some legalese, in the affidavit you will have to swear that no one else has filed papers. How do I know if someone else filed? That would be like a legitimate question that the expert in this area, the legal aid attorney, goes, everybody gets confused at this point and they always ask this question. So we have this feature called Learn More, which is just a pop-up that says, well, ask the court clerk about how to find papers that have already been filed, examples of papers filed, blah, blah, blah. In other words, there's little tips and tricks that are not entirely, they're not legal, they're more heuristic or they're guidance sort of things that someone who's had to deal with this situation many times can figure out. But of course, your average person, only has to deal with the courts, rarely. And so they don't have that long-term experience that they can bring to the situation. It's all new to them.
Right. Also, just want to comment on the screen there. If you can see the guide avatars and also the end user avatars, those are customizable. We really wanted to make this process very visual for the end user. So, they're positioned on a path to the courthouse, which hopefully they'll get to if they qualify to complete the guided interview. There are signposts on the side so they know which step of the process that they're in. And so we found that just having a visual representation of this very complicated process is very powerful for individuals. It's so much more useful than looking at a form, not understanding what a lot of what the words mean or what a lot of the legal terms mean or which form they're even using. If they can see themselves here on this process, we found that that's been very, very powerful.
So what you're showing us right now, it works like you can create your own decision trees, and that's how you create the interview?
Right. This is the authoring system that people use to build the interviews. Obviously, it's intended to be pretty straightforward. You build one question at a time. You can create branches so that if someone says how old are you, and they say, well, I'm 18, you go, oh, well, we need you to be over 18 in order to fill this out. Then they can branch off to a web page where they can get more information or exit the interview at that point. One of the key things we found in work in this space is that oftentimes people are filling out the wrong form in the first place. And so we train our authors to front load the questions that would guide people away to the right place, so that they don't waste their time going through a whole form and then find out, oh, wait, I don't need this, I need something else. That's actually a huge problem with people that are representing themselves in courts.
And where does your work stop? You fill out the questionnaire, then you print your form, and that's it, or you tell the users, so now that you have your form, these are the next steps. Please, I don't know, tell us your phone number, and we're gonna text you every time like something new happens, or that, to remind you that you need to go and to the court and do something.
Right. That's the beauty of A2J Author is that you can really tailor that guided interview to include the information that's necessary for that particular process. And so if it's a, if it's like a name change application or some standard form, you could tell them, once you print this out, please make sure that you file it here, or you submit it here, or you send it here. Here are, the author can include an address, where you can submit it or where you should file it. If there are any follow-ups, they can include all that information at the end, just so that the end user knows what to do with the information that they've inputted into the system.
Okay. And it's all software, right?
Right. You're talking to the tool builders here. So the people who decide what happens in the interview are the authors. And so they can decide if they want. We worked with people where the data comes out and goes into a court docketing system, think e-filing. We've worked with people where the data comes out and goes into a case management system for legal aid. We've worked with people where the data comes out and goes to a document assembly system like HotDocs, and then generates a PDF or generates a Word file and emails it back to the user so that they can print, sign, and then submit to the court. It's up to the authors or the users of the tool to decide what they're going to do with it.
Okay. I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them directly, or you can send us your questions through the chat. In the meantime, I was going to ask you, you imagine that there's a genie in a bottle, and you can ask the genie 3 wishes. Anything you want for the what will you ask?
Wow.
Ooh. First one I can think of is we're working right now on a mobile version so that this will work, so that A2J Author will work on people's phones, because for poor people, phones are for many of them, a smartphone is their primary method of access to the internet. And I would wish for the development environment on smartphones to get a lot simpler. I mean, right now there's app stores and there's development tools, and then there's a whole JavaScript ecology, and it's really complicated. And so I know we're going to get something out there in the next 3 to 6 months. But I also know that as the technical back end of it, we're gonna struggle mightily to get it to work on a wide variety of platforms. So that's one of my wishes, is that mobile rollout goes well.
If you don't mind, John,
go
I'll
ahead.
take this second wish. My wish would be that we could have courses that teach A2J Author in law schools across the country. We have, one of the challenges is we have this very simple to use but very powerful tool, but we need people to actually learn how to use it and then implement that for legal aid services. And so I would love to see the course model that we have here at Chicago Ken to be implemented in every law school in the country, if that was possible. And again, I said it doesn't have to be the same exact course, but it just has to be a course that teaches this tool to students so that they can make a difference with a legal aid organization, gain some really good practical experience, and also learn a new technical competency. And we're trying to do that right now through the A2J Author course project, which John mentioned earlier. And I suppose our wish would be for that sort of initiative, maybe not that particular initiative, but similar initiatives to flourish and get these courses taught at other law schools.
Before the third wish, we have a question from one of the people who joined the conversation, and he asked, are you aware of A2J Author being used in other jurisdictions such as Canada or in Europe, or is it only meant for the US?
Yeah, we're happy to work with people outside the U.S. It is being used in a couple of places in Canada. I know I was just talking with some people in Ontario, Western Ontario, who we didn't even know were enthusiastic users of A2J, and they were calling us with some technical questions. As for Europe, so A2J just won, or was a finalist in the Innovating Justice competition that was held in The Hague about a month ago. And I was invited, or they invited one of us, and I was the one who got to go. It's a tough job. To go, and so I gave a presentation about it to a whole group of people from the EU and from Africa. I met the Attorney General from Botswana, the head of the Supreme Court of Kenya, and all of them understood. And to be clear, it's not like filling out forms solves everybody's legal problem, but it would be really nice if we could take the easy yet difficult for self-represented people problems and make them all go away, or make them way more efficient, so that lawyers have more time and courts have more time to deal with the people and the problems that actually do require or require a lawyer more, or require court time. You know, so I don't see this as a panacea to solve everybody's problems, but I do see this as part of a solution that, you know, if we work this right, you know, we could get, it's sort of like Wikipedia in some ways. You know, Wikipedia doesn't solve the world's problems, but boy, is it useful, right? I mean, you know, you always find yourself turning to it to learn about stuff. And so I have this concept that this could be sort of a Wikipedia of court forms, or a Wikipedia of small legal processes, you know, and I want to get hundreds and thousands of lawyers engaged to do a worldwide thing that just makes simple justice more accessible.
And have governments...
That's my final wish.
Yeah. And have governments approached you and said, hey, why don't we simplify the process? Why don't we, who have the people who create the forms, actually have them created in this like interview interaction?
So not yet, except with some exceptions where some court systems have approached us and said, we want to use this to automate so the New York Family Courts have automated a couple of dozen forms. They call it DIY forms, do-it-yourself forms. And that's resulted in great success for them in being able to move people through. It's one of the largest courts, or family courts in the country. Los Angeles County Family Court has integrated the use of A2J with their thing. They do so many innovative things. They hold little seminars. They have full-time lawyers that they've hired who provide assistance, not advice. You know, and they have a collection of kiosks where people, you know, when they're at the point where they need a form filled out, they can go and use the kiosk to access an A2J form and fill it out.
Right.
So we've dealt with some governmental entities, but you know, working with government's hard because it's a bureaucracy. And even when individuals see the value of an innovation, they even have trouble getting their entity to adopt things like that.
Right. And so, you know, just based on some of the statistics that we received, we know that A2J Author is being used in at least 38 states in the United States. It's being used in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Guam. As John mentioned, it has a presence in Canada as well. And so I'm not sure, John, if you said that was your third wish for us to grow globally. But if it is, then I would echo that wish that John has.
And if I know we're over the time, but if I can just make one more question, if anyone else doesn't have one, I would like to ask you, what's your definition of success for A2J Author? It kind of relates with the wishes, but from where it started to 10 years from now, what's going to be the headline?
So,
well, sometimes I get really... Oh, sorry.
No, John, go ahead.
So sometimes I get really possibilities, but my definition for success is you really have to focus on the day-to-day and the next feature and the next product and the next release. Because if you don't do that, then you don't get to think the big thoughts at all. So it's great having conversations about all the wild, giant possibilities, but it's really important. Maybe this is advice for entrepreneurs, to stay grounded. Focus on your product, make it better, make it more capable. Get the essential work done.
Alex, would you like to add something?
Yeah, sure. I think my definition of success for A2J Author is that it does what we intend for it to do, and that is to really simplify this process for self-represented litigants. And we have a lot of statistics. We have a lot of success. We've talked about the numbers, the usages. Since its inception, and we've been able to reach a lot of people. And if we can continue to do that, if self-represented litigants come to a kiosk and they can print out a form that they need and they can file it, that's success enough. I think for me, and I'm sure John would agree with that, is that if we're putting this out there for people to use, we want them to be able to just achieve what they need to through it. And success doesn't necessarily mean that every single person who comes across a guided interview is able to print out a form, right? We make it very clear that this is it's an interviewing system. So we want to make sure that if you qualify to complete this form, then you're able to do so. If you're not, then we want to make sure that you know where to go after this, or what resources you need to avail yourself of if you can't use the guided interview. And so, that would be my definition of success. Okay.
I see, John, that you sent a link to a document. We're going to add it to the webpage of Demos for Democracy. And I don't know if there's something else you would like to add.
Nope. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. Always happy to get feedback too, positive and negative. I find that when we open ourselves to what people think about it, and this is a complicated thing, right? It sits in the middle of a legal system. So even talking about it, we practice how to use the best words to describe it, because we're explaining something that's relatively abstract and it's a bit of a hidden problem. And so always happy to have people ask us questions about it. So
right.
don't hesitate to email.
Thank you.
Right, and I just want to add. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to discuss here on this forum. We found this to be very an interesting forum, and we just want to say that if you have any questions about A2J Author, John mentioned the website. It's a2jauthor.org. You can register to use it if you are if you're a law student, or if you are a non-for-profit or a court staff member. You can check out some of our YouTube videos that we have. If you're already using A2J Author, it's youtube.com/A2J Author. That's our YouTube channel. And we try to keep that updated with some of our latest tutorials and guides as well. And so there's a wealth of information out there. And you have is our contact information available? I'm not sure if it's on there, but my email address is ARAB as in boy, NAL@kentlaw.iit.edu. If anybody has any further questions, and I think John's email is there as well. So
and we can also
it's in the show notes.
Thank you very much. We're very grateful that you joined us in these conversations where we try to get to know more about these tools that are really having an impact and improving people's lives. So thank you for sharing your work with us, and for sure we'll keep this conversation going.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.